4th, 2023 Ogden City Council meeting. Please let the record reflect that all council members are present, with the exception of Councilmember Nadolski, who I believe is online. Would you like to say hello?
Good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm not there. I'm a little under the weather. So thanks for letting me check in remote.
Well, and thank you for staying home. We like that you're here, but you're not spreading any germs. Thank you. And then Councilmember Lopez is not here now, but I do expect him eventually. Next, I'd love to invite Vice Chair Ritchie to offer the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you would please stand and join me, if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. First off, I would love to, as one of my acknowledgements, just make a quick statement in relation to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. The council has received many emails and outreach through phone calls and from people expressing concerns about the eviction notice that was sent to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center. Council staff reviewed the written agreement between Ogden City and the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center and believe that the mayor's notice meets the terms of the agreement. The management of the city property is an administrative function solely within the purview of the mayor's authority and not the council's. We as the council cannot override the mayor's decision in this matter. We did express some concerns and asked that perhaps the administration consider a little bit of an extension on the period. And I believe that's underway. So we just want to make sure that we make that clear now that it's the mayor's sole discretion to grant any additional time on that item. So thank you. First up are acknowledgements. Well, second up, I should say. We invite Chair of the Diversity Commission, Sharday Jones, to talk with us about Autism Awareness Month. Welcome.
Hello, good evening, everybody. How's everyone doing?
Okay.
Good, okay. All right, so we would like to give some recognitions for Autism Awareness Month and thank all of our great leaders in the community doing work in the realm of autism for our kids and other departments and businesses here in Ogden. So we're going to start with the Ogden City Police Department. Ogden Police Department has prided itself on looking ahead and projecting future needs of the community. When the idea of an autism database was brought up by community member and autism advocate Stacey Bernal, the department started looking for a model that would best serve both the community and the department. Ogden Police established the Autism Database in early 2022. The Autism Database alerts officers when they are dealing with an autistic individual and can give them tips on how to best interact with that specific person to get them the help that they need. Ogden police officers are required to complete training on autism, mental health, and de-escalation on a yearly basis. Most officers average more than 40 hours of training required. The police department has a Virtua simulator that has allowed officers virtual training in almost every possible scenario and imaginable. The Virtua is the invaluable tool for training in a variety of mental health situations. Aside from the required training, Ogden Police Department is also implementing emotional intelligence training for all officers. The department has already seen the value in assisting our autistic community. Ogden Police is committed to the equitable treatment for all community members and will continue to look for ways to improve. Thank you to Ogden City Police Department for taking to the initiative to serving our autistic community members. We also wanted to take some time to thank the awesome lady who gave them this training, Stacy Bernal. Stacy Bernal is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager for the Utah Jazz and a member of the Ogden School District Board of Education. Stacy Rubino Bernal is the first ever Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager for the Utah Jazz. She is a TEDx speaker, author, and the founder of Awesome Autistic Ogden, an annual community event celebrating neurodiversity and disability. Stacy is passionate about empowering individuals and organizations to live their biggest and most authentic lives. An outspoken advocate for equity, inclusion, accessibility, and representation, Stacy is known to challenge the status quo on occasion. She has been featured in the HuffPost, Thrive Global, Visit Utah, Scary Mommy, and Autism Parenting Magazine. In 2019, she published her first book, The Things We Don't Talk About, a memoir of hardship, healing, and hope. Previously, Stacy served on the WSUAA Board of Directors, OWTC Foundation Board of Trustees, Ogden Diversity Commission, Ogden CAN, and the Autism After 21 Initiative. Stacy worked with the Ogden Police Department to create a training for police officers on how to interact with people on the autism spectrum. So thank you, Stacy, for being a leader in our community.
Great. Yeah, you can come up and shake your hands and we can take a photograph if you'd like.
Can I say something real quick, or are we going to do the picture
Afterwards,
first?
yeah.
Okay. I'm like, wait, you know, I like to talk.
And please, we'd love to hear from both of you.
So on behalf of the Ogden Police Department, I want to thank everybody here. I want to thank the council, especially for the funding for the VirTra, because it is not a cheap training tool. We are one of, I think now maybe 3 in the whole state that are able to have the VirTra simulator. And it's just so invaluable, not just in autism, but in so many other areas of training. We've now started incorporating our VirTra simulator into our Citizens Police Academy. And I think Angela tried it, or sorry, Chair Chaburka and, Rich. Tried it last go around. So the next Citizens Academy, I'm going to extend the invitation also to everybody here if you guys want to come and check it out a little bit more. And it's a pretty interesting time. I also want to thank the Diversity Commission. I know the chief very much appreciates all the relationships that we've built with the community and with everybody else to help us become a better department, and we will continue to move forward and make the commitment to treat everybody in our community equitably and fairly. We want everybody to feel safe with our police department, and I think we have a really great department. I think for the first time since I've started anyway, we have a full department, 2 in the academy, but we, I think for the first time, have a full department, which is a very great feeling. So thank you to the council for the support, thank you to the community for the support, and thank you very much to the Diversity Commission for always keeping us in mind.
Awesome.
And sorry, and to Stacy, because without Stacy coming to us and asking us why we weren't doing this, I don't know, it would have happened as quickly as it did. So definitely want to appreciate Stacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana, for that kind lead-in. So I'm Stacy Bernal. You already know who I am, and it's wild to think that we are celebrating our 6th year of doing Awesome Autistic Ogden, and it is definitely a labor of love for me and my small team to carry on this event every April. But it's also incredibly important, and I think y'all know that, which is why I'm here tonight. very tricksy, by the way, because I was not told I was being honored. They were like, we're honoring OPD and we want you to be there to like say thanks to OPD. And I was like, cool, I will come in and say thank you to OPD, which I do want to say thank you. They are wonderful community partners. They have just been so gracious in the process of working with me, and, not just, it probably would have been very easy to brush me off as an annoying parent or citizen, and they were willing to sit down and have the conversation and look at what we needed to do to be able to initiate the database. And I think it's a great thing for our community. It's peace of mind and just one more way that we make Ogden great for everyone. I also want to give them a shout out as a school board member for their fast response last week at Ogden High. That was definitely something that was very scary for our students, our teachers, our faculty, and our families. And we were just really grateful for how quickly they responded. And thank you to all of you for your service to the community. And finally, as the former chair of the Diversity Commission, I would like to say that I stand with Kevin Lundell. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Awesome. Up next, we have asked Councilmember Heyer to read an acknowledgement for the Philanthropic Educational Organization, which is celebrating 100 years.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The Ogden chapter F of the Philanthropic, that's a hard word to say, Philanthropic Educational Organization celebrated its centennial on March 15th, 2023. Marking 100 years of service to women in the Ogden area. This chapter has been instrumental in advancing the educational and career opportunities of women in the community, providing scholarships, grants, and other financial assistance to support their academic pursuits. Over the past century, Chapter F has established a strong reputation for its commitment to empowering women and promoting sisterhood. The chapter's centennial is a testament to the lasting impact of the organization's mission and the dedication of its members.
Great. And I don't know if we have anybody from the organization here. I don't think so. No. Yep. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Are there any other comments or acknowledgements from council members?
I just have a quick one, and just recognizing the time, but I don't know why it came up, but Martin Luther King was assassinated 55 years ago today at 6:05, and I just thought it was kind of an interesting time frame, and as Stacy brought into something that he, among many things, he spoke out about love and not hatred, and I really appreciated that you had said that too, so or something similar to that. So thank you. I just wanted to recognize that for some weird
I didn't
reason
know that.
it came into my feed.
Any other acknowledgements or comments? Yeah, I think that we all are just very grateful to the Ogden Police Department and the surrounding agencies that helped respond to that event at Ogden High. I certainly got a lot of messages and was seeing that on the socials and just feeling horrified for it possibly actually happening, but then almost, feeling so negatively about it being a hoax, or some kind of prank that someone was playing on us, which is not appropriate at all. So I really appreciate the response, and I understand, the chief and the mayor, you were all down celebrating the chief, getting a recognition of the Utah Chief of the Year, and so what a horrible time to have something like that happen, but also in the midst of that probably celebration that you were having too. So really appreciate that. And if anybody else has any other acknowledgements. Yeah, please.
I just want to say thank you to anyone that was involved in the celebration of the New Americans that happened at the Union Station. That was quite the event, right? I went through that in 2008 myself, and it brought me back a lot of really, really cool memories. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that to Ogden. That was amazing.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting us to participate. Did you have a comment, Mayor?
I was just going to say that's the first time that's ever happened in Ogden. So that was a big a big event, and I want to thank Linda. I don't know. I think she may have.
She's back there behind the column. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
We need to
can't
get
see
rid
her.
of these columns because I can't
She did a
see.
lot of work. So did Diana Lopez, and that was a team effort. And I agree that was really. We get to deal with a lot of things that aren't a lot of fun sometimes, but that was really cool to see. And if I could have heard all 126 stories of their journey to get there and to have done that work, I would have loved to have heard those stories. So it was inspiring for sure.
It was incredible. I was like, I would like to do this every day if possible.
Chair, I came home after that. I attended that also. It was very impressive. And I Googled the test that they have to take to become a citizen.
Did you pass?
I did pass, but it was not an easy test. It was, I try to keep up on all that stuff, but I suggest all of you do that. Google the test for the naturalization and take it yourself. 100 questions. See how you do. See if you're worthy to be a citizen or not.
As somebody smarter than me once said, one of the comments should have been, ask not what you can do for your country, or not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And those people did that. They exemplified that, I thought.
Yeah.
For sure. Any other comments? Okay, great.
Thanks for bringing that up, Louise. That was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that. Now we have the common consent item.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to table the common consent item to, I believe, April 11th is our next meeting, just to allow for some time for us as we fulfill our role as advice and consent. So just a little bit extra time on that one.
I second.
So we have a motion by Vice Chair Ritchie and a second by Councilmember Lopez to table the common consent item, the Diversity Commission appointments, reappointments and appointments. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. So we'll table that item. Thank you. Up next, we have a report from the Planning Commission. Barton Brierly, their planning manager, will talk with us about the proposed zone text amendment, height limits in R3 zones.
Okay, good evening, Chair Chaburka and City Councilors. This item is a proposal to modify the height limits in the R3 zone. It would set a maximum height limit of 4 stories or 50 feet. It would modify setback standards adjacent to residential and open space zones and modify height standards for nursing homes. So the origin of this, the school district has declared certain property on Jackson Avenue as surplus, and it's currently zoned R3, and the city council was pondering what the potential reuse of that property could be in the future. And the council asked me, what are the height limits in the R3 zone? I said, there aren't any. And that made the council kind of squirm a bit. And so administration asked me to work with the Planning Commission and see if we could present to you what would be an appropriate height limit for the R3 zone. And so what's coming before you today is the result of that effort. And when I say there aren't any, there are some asterisks on it. So there actually are some height limits. And so I'll go over those just briefly. There are limits on the density you can have based on other buildings in the block. There's limits next to residential open space zones, limit on nursing homes, and the general plan has some limits. So the maximum density in the R3 zone is somewhere between 11 and 20 dwelling units per acre, depending on how the project's laid out. And so we looked at several projects that were built at those densities, and every one of them is 2 or 3 story buildings. In fact, can be quite a bit higher density and still be a 3-story building. I didn't find any that were 4-story buildings. And so that's why we came up with the proposal for 4 stories, because we figured that would not limit the density of anybody's project. It still provides some flexibility. Sometimes people want to do a taller building in the middle and smaller buildings around the edge. But we feel that would still meet the purpose of having an R3 zone, but really limit that sort of extreme example where someone wanted to put one really tall tower in the middle of the property or something. There are some standards based on what other buildings in the block are, and Planning Commission's proposed a separate amendment to actually eliminate the standard because it's very difficult to enforce and figure out how you interpret it. And plus, more fundamentally, that if it's zoned for certain densities, certain type of development, we feel like you should be able to do that even if the rest of the block hasn't developed or redeveloped. This is particularly concerning in downtown where we've got blocks where we're planning very tall buildings, but the current development may be just 1 or 2 story homes in there. There's also a limit when you're adjacent to a residential or open space zone where you have to be shorter next to that zone. And here we just found some challenges in the discrepancies between the text and the pictures. The picture talks about residential next to a commercial or manufacturing zone. The text doesn't make that distinction. So we're recommending that the text be modified to match. The picture and the text be reconciled so they say the same thing. And it seems to be really the intention that to not have a tall building next to a single family residential zone, not to have like 2 properties that are both in multifamily residential zones to have to be shorter next to each other. But just as I noted, there is actually a height limit based on that. And the code also has a little exception for nursing homes that they can only be 2 1/2 stories or 35 feet. And that seems a little odd when any other kind of use could be taller. And so we just recommend eliminating this special provision so they would just follow the general 4-story height limit. Another question was whether this should apply just to the property on Jackson Avenue or more generally to R3 properties. It was our thought that as the council kind of was nervous when I mentioned that there wasn't a height limit on that property. I think any other property, if the neighbors found out, oh, wait, there's no height limit, they'd probably have the same concern. And so our thought was to make this generally applicable to all R3 properties. And there is a property when we sent out notices that there were a lot of expressions of concern about that, and that's a particular property on 29th and Buchanan. And this is right up against the hills. There's a lot of slopes there. There is actually a tower across the street, and I think that's why there was some thought by the property owner about that. But it is a non-conforming tower. It wouldn't be allowed under today's zoning. And this is in the Mount Ogden Community Plan, and it actually says in the general plan that any new structure in the zone should not exceed 4 stories in height. So we felt that this R3 zone limit is the same as what the general plan is saying already. And this isn't a case where you got an R3 next to an R3, so the code amendment actually allow a little bit taller buildings than the current.
Chair, could I ask Martin a question? Sure. Where this is in the sensitive overlay, or most of it is, what limitation does that place on it anyway?
It places density limits, so you can't build to the maximum density. You got to bring it down to 70% or even less of the density. You have to do slope stability studies and make sure that the foundations.
It doesn't affect the height, though, huh? It doesn't automatic. Okay, it's just density. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So our conclusion on this property is the 4-story height limit's already in place. It doesn't change the number of dwelling units allowed on the property, and it does actually slightly increase the height that would be allowed. So the Planning Commission's recommended that you adopt the new height limits for the R3 zone.
Any questions or conversation up here before we take public input?
Just clarity on that property. So the landowner had suggested that, I think his understanding was because there was an 8-story building across the street, he potentially could do the same thing. But what you're saying is that's a non-conforming use, and it's not that the current zoning wouldn't have allowed him to develop it to that standard or to that level.
Yes, that's correct.
But you did mention, and just if you don't mind reiterating, how this change could potentially enhance or help or add, I think, potential height to his property, or it could be a little better for him with this change.
Yeah, there's that provision where if you have a tall building next to a residential zone, you have to step back the height.
Yeah.
The proposal would be just to apply that next to a single family residential zone, not any residential zone. So in this case, you've got, I'm going to use the pointer this time. Doesn't even have to remind me.
It's learning.
There you go. We got it.
So on the north, it's a single family residential zone. So you'd have to set back a little bit from here, but across the street is actually an R3. So you wouldn't have to do that extra transition on this side. Or this side. So that's where you could potentially have a little bit taller building.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? And Councilmember Nadolski, feel free just to jump in whenever you have questions. I might forget you're there.
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You bet. So now we're going to receive input if there's no other questions. So we'd be happy to take input from the public on this item alone. You have 3 minutes to make comment, and you would just state your name for the record if you're here in the audience, or if you're online, you would just raise your hand and then we will allow you to speak.
Chair, seeing no movement, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you. It's just input, so we don't have to close it, but I agreed. I don't see anybody jumping up. Unless, were you getting up? No. Okay, sorry. Sorry, when people move, I think they're making action. Okay, great. Well, I'd be happy to consider a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2023-15.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember White and a second by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2023-15. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Wade.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie.
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye, and that passes. Thank you.
Chair, if I can just make a quick comment. Again, thank you for that rapid response to that, Barton. And thanks for looking at the entire city, not just one parcel. So I think that will help ease a lot of people's minds.
Yeah, agreed. Awesome. So now it's time for public comment on any topic. You would just come to the podium and state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And a lot of times when you have questions are posed, just say all the questions and then your time will stop. And then if we're able, we'll respond or we'll follow up with you later. And that's all. So please step up or raise your hand if you're online. Welcome.
Thank you. Kevin Lundell, Ogden City resident and former vice chair of the Diversity Commission. First and foremost, I'd like to thank those council members who showed support for the Diversity Commission in the work session earlier today. On Tuesday, March 28th, I received a letter from Mayor Caldwell informing me that I would not be reinstated to the Diversity Commission. This came as a surprise, as I was recently voted to the vice chair position by my fellow commissioners and had served less than 1 year. After requesting a meeting to seek more understanding as to why I was not reinstated, I was told that a meeting would, quote, not be productive, and that, quote, turnover is common. While turnover is common, it is unprecedented for a sitting commissioner in good standing with their fellow commissioners to not be reinstated, let alone a sitting vice chair. While the mayor has sole discretion as to who gets appointed to the Diversity Commission, he refused my reinstatement without consulting the chair, the Diversity Affairs Coordinator, or the commission. A good leader utilizes their colleagues when making key decisions like appointments. and he didn't even make an attempt. Without an explanation given by the mayor, I spent a lot of time pondering what I could have done to effectively be expelled from the commission. Last month, I wrote an op-ed defending diversity efforts from the likes of Senator John Johnson and the bill that he proposed that would have outlawed diversity programs in higher education. I unapologetically used language comparing Johnson to some of the most notorious politicians in our past who stood in the way of racial progress. Given the fact that Senator Johnson was protested last week by students at Weber State University, it seems that my opinion is in line with many who care about diversity efforts in our city. So, from my perspective, I was expelled from the Diversity Commission for defending diversity. Let me say that one more time. I was expelled from the Diversity Commission for defending diversity. I've spent many hours this weekend discussing this situation with fellow commissioners, past and present. The words I keep hearing from them to describe the commission are performative and tokenizing, which leads me to believe this is just the tip of the iceberg. During my year of service, the mayor has not been to a single Diversity Commission meeting and has not had any interaction with our commission leadership. I'd like to call on Mayor Caldwell to re-engage with the Diversity Commission in good faith, to find a path forward that allows us to fulfill the mission and purpose of the Diversity Commission Charter together. Thank you.
The fanciest wheels in the chamber.
Right? We're lighting up as we walk up here.
Yeah.
Okay. Carrie Harbath, Ogden City resident. I'm usually a Facebook Live viewer, so it's great to be here in real life, and I'm going to go really fast. So I quickly want to share my story. I'm an OG Ogdenite. Among the first set of students at Da Vinci Academy, a storyteller in the WSU Storytelling Festival, and I volunteered many service hours at Treehouse Children's Museum, eventually graduating from Weber State University, and that's just the start. I've greatly benefited from Ogden's culture, and in recent years, my life did a complete 180. I'm now a 33-year-old widowed mom to a cool disabled kid, Sloan. Coming from a past life pretty full of privilege, I never saw that coming. In 2019, my daughter was born and life flighted from McKay-Dee to Primary Children's, where her start to life was tenuous at best. She has a long list of medical diagnoses and a diagnosis of complete deafblindness. She attends Ogden School for the Deaf and Blind, a real gem in our city. My mom, my pillar of support, Ogden advocate, and the founder of Ogden's Come Together community meal, Kim McCorkle Harbath, died unexpectedly in her sleep just 6 months after my daughter was born. Then, 9 months after my mom's death in 2020 at the height of the pandemic, my amazing husband of 13 years, other pillar of support, and dedicated dad to Sloan, Aaron Loftus, also an OG Ogdenite, died unexpectedly by suicide. Mom always said there's healing in advocacy, so I heal while advocating for disability rights and justice, awareness for grief, and sitting in life's darkest moments with others, and mental health support. I am currently working with the National Center on Deafblindness to create content for their deafblind intervener trainings, with ties leading back to Ogden's USDB campus. My sister and I run Sloan Scrunchies, focused on funding a scholarship for non-trad students at the Women's Center at WSU, and I'll be going back to WSU to receive my ASL certificate starting this summer. I share my story because it highlights why I volunteer my time on Ogden's Diversity Commission, aiming to give Ogden what it has so wonderfully given to me. I'm not alone. Every single one of us on the commission has a story full of depth and lived experience that led us to volunteering our time out of a desire to help. And when I first joined the Diversity Commission, that strategy felt supported. But as of late, the Diversity Commission has unfortunately felt more performative and tokenizing than truly impactful and service-oriented. I nominated Kevin Lundell as vice chair for the Diversity Commission because he's making a positive impact in our community and using his voice for good. The lack of communication and transparency around not reinstating Kevin has been extremely discouraging and has me questioning my role on the commission. I'm not sure of my own future on the Diversity Commission as it stands today. My ask is that Mayor Caldwell and the administration address the issues that are surfaced tonight regarding the Diversity Commission and clarify the degree to which diversity and inclusion efforts will be included in Ogden City's mission moving forward so current commissioners can decide if serving on the commission is right for them. Thank you.
Thank you. I think she dropped something.
Yeah, she probably did. That really
Just like all little kids. Oh, it's just under her wheel there.
Oh, it's her butt. Drop the butt.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I serve on 2 committees appointed by the governor for the Utah Multicultural Affairs Division. I'm extraordinarily proud of the work that the governor has done with regards to equity, inclusion, and diversity. He was one of the first people to sign the Utah Racial Compact. We have had some really rich conversations as a result of the Diversity Commission, going back to the naming of a street and the amount of discussion that took, and the good and the bad, and it was a challenging time and it was difficult for a lot of people, but we had conversations that were hard and we were better for it. The petitioner decided that she was very happy with that. We acknowledged Native Americans and we moved forward. The Diversity Commission is filling an incredibly important role. And I'm sad to say that I feel we're not living up to the standard that the state is setting. I think it's egregious that Kevin Lindell was not reappointed. He's an upstanding member of this community, has a history of service, and is a warm, nice, articulate individual. And the fact that the mayor would not take a meeting with him to discuss it, did not even give him the politeness of that, is egregious in my book. And we have this happening a lot with committees where there are people from the community volunteering their time out of the goodness of their heart to try and serve Ogden. And it feels performative and it feels like there's box checking. And I'm challenging the administration to do better because I know you can. I mean, we do a lot of great things, but we're really, really not doing as well as we can in this particular area. And I also encourage people not to be punitive when it comes to someone who is kicking the tires on an idea. Challenging and opposition yields a better product. I encourage you all to remember back when you were in school and you had that teacher that was like, well, why do you believe that? Well, why do you think so? Are you sure? Whenever you are challenged, you are forced to examine what you have. And one of the things that we need to do in Ogden Wants and Needs is the best, the absolute best that we can bring to Ogden. And that isn't always going to be everybody kumbaya and agree. Sometimes there's opposition. And as long as it is done with respect and politeness, it is okay to disagree, but it's imperative that we have these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. Got a few hands online as well.
Thank you. Members of the City Council, thank you tonight. My name's Dave Timmerman. I live here in Ogden happily for the last 7.5, 8 years and enjoy living here. I'm here because I have similar concerns regarding the treatment of certain former members of various commissions and committees. And I feel like a lot of times that they're sort of like when you become a member, when you participate, you shouldn't have to give up your constitutional rights. Yes, you need to be careful and not inflammatory, but I know that all city employees are eligible at the whim of the mayor, those that work in the administration at least, to lose their employment. I understand that. I get that. But I think in this case, something else needs to be understood also, and that is our treatment of other individuals. And I'm glad to see the mayor here tonight. But I do think it's important. We need to treat people the way that we would our own family. And I think at a minimum, as has already been pointed out tonight, we need to give those people an opportunity to understand why they're being let go. I think at a very minimum, that's important. It's dignified. It's what we should do. And it's leadership. That's true leadership. Treat people the way you would like to be treated. The other issues that I'm here to talk about tonight had to do with the notice to vacate, which was provided to the Wildlife Rehab Center. And I appreciate Chair Chaburka's comments regarding that and what the city's position is and the situation. However, I would like to just tell you a personal observation I have. My daughter, when we first moved here, our kids were both going to Weber State, and she took a job there as a volunteer part-time. And we had lengthy conversations about what she was doing, the injuries to the animals that they care for. It touched me deeply, and it was important. And I thought, you know, young people need this. And they had a lot of volunteers and young people who were participating. This is an opportunity for us to continue to shine as a city and as a community. And I really hate to see us just sort of vacate or give them an order to vacate. We need to give them time. We need to do what we can to try to help them find some other location, including finding properties within Ogden City proper, which could be available and usable for them. Anyway, thank you very much for that. Those are my thoughts and feelings about that. I'll give you one quote and then I'll leave. Of all the animals, man is the only one that is cruel. He is the only one that inflicts pain for the pleasure of doing it. Mark Twain. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Hi, Teresa Holmes, Ogden resident. Hello, City Council members. I love the Wild Bird Refuge. I have taken so many birds there and gone over there and checked them out. And they showed me how they let them loose. Like if somebody brings in a few sparrows, they let them loose all at the same time, you know. And all summer long, I'm leaving water all around 25th Street for the birds in droughts and bird seed. You know, in fact, at Union Station, I used to have birds chasing my car, and then I changed my car, and I thought, oh my gosh, I got rid of them. And then a big old seagull flew over and goes, arr, arr, you know, and then they were all around me in about 2 seconds. We need to save give them someplace else to go, or another building, or give them more time. This is really important. I tell everybody when they find injured birds to take them over there. And usually when I take a bird in, I hand them $20, you know. And another thing is zoning for the Union Station. I would like to see part of that campus remain historic, you know, along with 25th Street, so we can save the Eccles Rail Center. A lot of my friends and I, we love those trains down there. And the Eccles Rail Center brings people to town. People come here from everywhere to do this. And, you know, another thing I would think would be a great idea is to keep one of those rails for trains that come to town and actually work on getting a steam engine to go to Promontory Point and back. You want to get people here and save our history? That would be the biggest improvement we could do, you know. And sure, I miss volunteering at Union Station, but I might be over at the Bird Refuge. Hey, have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Save the birds.
Hello again. I'm still Stacy Burnell, still an Ogden resident, and still an elected Ogden School Board member. My first order of business is that I forgot to let you know this year what we're doing for Awesome Autistic Ogden. Okay, so I wanted to share that. This Friday, as part of the Art Stroll, we will be at the Bonneville on 25th Street. We have student artwork from Weber School District and Ogden School District special education students. So this is the third year that we will be hosting the Autistic Art Stroll, and it's pretty amazing for these students to come out and bring their families out and to see themselves represented in the community at an art show that's for them and by them. The second thing that we'll be doing is on the 15th from 11 to 2, we'll be hosting our main big event at Youth Impact this year. So in their big gym area, we'll have a couple food trucks there as well. We have over 25 vendors that will be there. A surprise visit from, I could not get Jazz Bear, but I did get his cousin Buster Bear, who is the G League Stars mascot, will be there to entertain and delight. So I would invite you to come to either or both of those events and celebrate neurodiversity, disability, and keep Ogden weird. And second, I do want to acknowledge that I spent 2.5 years on the Ogden Diversity Commission. And much like the others have said before me, in a lot of ways, it did feel like we were in this role that we were supposed to be assisting y'all, assisting administration, and assisting city council, that we were there to be a resource. And we often felt like we would be tasked with something and then not listened to. And I know that for my part, it was very frustrating. It felt like, what are we doing here? And now we see in recent years that there is a blatant attack on anything that has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. To see a bill come from one of our representatives in Utah prohibiting diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education. I want to remind you, my role with the Utah Jazz is diversity, equity, and inclusion manager. So that feels very personal. Y'all know my passion, my love for neurodiversity and disability, and bills like that would harm my son and people like my child. So yes, we need to be speaking out against our elected officials who think that this is good. And I understand, I was at Weber State last week. I heard what he had to say. And he somehow thinks that this bill will help us increase diversity and inclusion and teach our students to learn critically, when it does the exact opposite, because it's taking access and resources from the groups of people who need it the most. So to have someone use his privilege and power to speak up for our underrepresented, historically underestimated demographics, we need more of Kevin Lundell in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any more. Oh, there's some movement.
All right, I'm also going to make this quick. I'm sure Dave, vice chair of the Diversity Commission. And I just want to speak on behalf of myself and the reason I got involved with the Diversity Commission in the first place. I've also lived here in Ogden my whole entire life, went through the Ogden School District and went to Midlothian, graduated from Weber State as a non-traditional student with the help of the Multicultural Center at Weber State University that helped us African-American students get through the system and graduate no matter where we were at in our education. Like Stacey said, bills like the ones that have been presented would put that in jeopardy. And also with being a part of this commission, we all have participated because we want to make change. We all come from very differing backgrounds, from the way we live, the way we believe, and that's what diversity is. And we want to make sure that everybody has the chance to speak without being stifled. We want to make sure that we all have the chance to work together without the fear of being ostracized or ousted in any way. I do see a way forward for the Diversity Commission. Our leadership has changed. Our previous leadership was awesome as well, but I do see changes that can be made for the better for the Diversity Commission, so that we don't feel that we're here just to kind of put on a show and say that Ogden City has a Diversity Commission and make us the cool city to be at, which we really are. And I just want to make sure that when people hear that we have a Diversity Commission, they know that we're taking action and making change, and the people who have been chosen to sit in these seats have dedicated their time as volunteers. We're not getting paid, and we're using our connections to make this better for our children. And Stacey knows that at the school board. This is really for our kids and our future students who are coming up behind us and who want to make change. So they want to see us as leaders and know that they too can be a part of a commission like this that evokes change. And I really hate to see my vice chair go, but I'm hoping that this event will enlighten us to, like everybody said before me, do better and give us the chance to be of assistance to you all and be able to work together, hopefully in peace and harmony. That always doesn't happen, but hopefully just listen to each other and be the change that we want to see. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I just have one quibble with what Kevin said. You're not the first person that's been kicked off a commission for speaking up for a community, and you know what I'm talking about. I did need to, a matter of importance, because you're talking about it tonight without any comment that I know of. I want to say there's a developer that couldn't pull together $500,000 to purchase the cleaner location on the Rite Aid block. So they came to you to buy the land for them. And you did. The same developer was given the Wonder Block, and now maybe 550 24th Street, which you'll be talking about tonight. And that's part of the same team for the Union Station development. I want to know if it's wise to put all of our eggs into this single basket. If they fail, what happens to the city? Will we be stuck with the bond until 2054, right? We haven't seen a signed contract for 2524 Wall since many of you voted to give that land to a developer 8 months ago. When can we expect to see the final contract on that? The Brown Ice Cream Building was sold with no public process a year and a half ago, citing that it was necessary to move more quickly to remove the blight. No work appears to have been done despite a completion deadline of November of this year. I'd like to know the status on that. The city purchased 10 adjacent lots on 30th back in 2016. A developer was selected for it in October of 2021. That lot still sits blighted. I just want to know if the city is staying on top of all these investments of our money. We've purchased all this land up, and it seems we're told we have to do these quicker processes to get this blight taken care of fast, and then they just sit there. So when you go into your discussions about 550 24th tonight, please ask why Jay Fisher was never mentioned in the presentation for it, why no movement on this has been made a year and a half after their selection for it. Why have we sat on it for a year and a half? We end up paying, interest, and we don't get those property taxes. So I would like to get developers that can actually perform the work once they're selected. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. We might have to wait till Brandon's, maybe Brandon can respond to some of those questions. He's not here tonight. Okay, I don't see any more movement in the chambers, but I think there's some people online, but they've just disappeared. Oh, there we go. It looks like Taylor Knuth is up first. You can unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Taylor Knuth, and I'm a resident of Ogden City. I also served diligently on the Diversity Commission from its founding date in 2016 until 2021. I'm also a past chair of this commission. I was initially compelled to serve because of the commission and building an Ogden City where, quote, everybody belongs. I'd like to paraphrase a recommendation the commission sent you all in our 2020 annual report. Among these recommendations, here are two that stand out. First, to clearly define the commission's roles, responsibilities, and purposes. And second, to renew your individual commitments to the thoughtful and consistent use of our Diversity Commission and the expertise of the people you have appointed to serve. In the times that I've spoken in front of your body on this topic, I've been pretty consistent and steadfast in my support of these suggestions and more. I've described that failure to enact change in the way we engage with boards and commissions could ultimately do a disservice to us and exacerbate the chasm of trust that is occurring between our elected officials and residents. The decision in front of your body with regards to appointments to this Diversity Commission has the potential to further widen and entrench this chasm of trust between you as elected officials and many of the people who volunteer, I repeat, volunteer their time, talent, and even treasure in service of the city. There's a better path forward with our city's boards and commissions. I want to remind you all that we sent a 2019 communication as the Diversity Commission to both your body and the city administration about the appointment processes of our boards and commissions. And in that document, we actually found that our appointment process is pretty antiquated. It's inconsistently applied among all the boards and commissions, and it's generally unfair, if not borderline unethical. To say that this process in front of us today has been unfair would be an understatement. It's been inconsistent, and it does not instill trust or good faith in you all as elected officials. Perhaps most concerning to me is the administration's outright refusal to engage in a conversation on this topic without reason, logic, or even common sense for that matter. I join past Chair Stacey Bernal and others tonight in standing with Kevin Lundell. If this process stands as is and council members in support of this item and against further scrutiny on this review process, if we do this, we'll further reinforce this unethical and unfair appointment process, a process that's pretty clearly demonstrated to us in recent days that anybody, any volunteer of the city, past, present, and future, at a moment's notice, can be expelled or excluded without cause or explanation as one engages in their individual efforts to make Ogden City a place where everyone belongs. All that to say, I'm pretty optimistic that this body, in partnership with the mayor and his team and the commission that you all created in 2017 in partnership with so many others, can engage in a process for appointments and reappointments to our city boards and commissions that is equitable, ethical, fair, and consistent. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Sebastian Benitez.
Hello, this is Sebastian Benitez. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I don't know why I am so nervous today, but usually I am nervous when I am going to tell something someone will not like it. I want to go straight to our mayor, Mike Caldwell. I text you last week to try to meet with you. You don't respond to me. In the past, you respond to me. We have a really great meeting, but this time I don't have any response for you. And I will tell you in public because I don't have a chance to tell you in private. I want to ask you and Gary Williams to put on hold the eviction for the Ogden Wildfire Rehabilitation Center. You are not going to be the mayor next year. Even Mark Johnson will be not the CEO in the city. And I ask you two guys to put on hold and let the new administration, doesn't matter who will be, to take care of this issue. And I am asking you the same thing about Kevin Lendell, the diversity commission guy, and to reinstate him in the commission the diversity commission, because he did a really great job. I am looking every time when he is doing something for our community, but I don't know why you don't want to put him back or you fire him or whatever you want to call. But the point is, if you look like he is not effective or in that commission, I want to ask you, can you look yourself if you are effective as a mayor in our community? I don't think so. I ask you, please look yourself, stop the Ogden Wild Rehabilitation Center for this. My son been there for a long time helping, and he loved it. And please, the city council, can you please freeze and stop all the projects like Wonder Block, the bond, everything? This guy will not be responsible anymore after December. That is my petition for you guys and for the Mike Howell. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Amy Wicks.
Hello, thank you. I'm Amy Wicks, Ogden resident. I have a couple things I'll touch on. One being the Diversity Commission. And I don't know, with the information you were given, there really wasn't any information on the background of the people who are being proposed or what communities they represent. I've harped on this for years. I'm Native American, enrolled in a federally recognized tribe. There are a lot of Native Americans in our community. I've asked for many years for Native American representation on the Diversity Commission, and I don't know that we have that. So I'm just asking if we don't have it. I'm not going to make assumptions about people's backgrounds, but would ask for that. I've also heard some feedback from people who served in that body that the timing of meetings is difficult for people who work typical hours. And that's why you had some people fall off, is because there's the expectation that they show up, during work hours. Tough. If you want people to volunteer, you need to make it work for them. And maybe not just the, bureaucrats who are there to take minutes, make it work for the people who serve that body. Second thing I'm going to address tonight is the Wildlife Rehab Center. I have a real hard time with some of the things that came out in the work session with the dinosaur park. I mean, does Jay Louder decide what happens with land owned by the citizens of Ogden, being, the former animal shelter, which was built, with donations, largely with donations, by Carol Conroy Browning and her fundraising. Does Jay make the decision to tear down the building? Does the mayor? Where's the public process? If we're going to lose a public asset like that, and the use for that area is going to change, if they're going to bulldoze it for a parking lot, where's the public access? Where's the transparency? And I don't know why the Dinosaur Park Board thinks they have the right to the space. Like, where is the long range plan? Where's the public process? Where's the chance for public input? It's publicly owned land. And it's just absurd that, that you're having people make these decisions without any sort of public process. And so I would ask you to look at that. I'd also ask the mayor to consider giving the Wildlife Rehab Center an extension. It's absurd to give them that amount of space and expect them to be able to come up with an exit strategy. And if they have to close their doors, then wildlife in this area will suffer. Well-meaning people won't have a place to take animals. They may try to do it themselves, or animals will just suffer and die. And that's going to be on your watch if you push this through. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, either online or in the chamber? Alrighty. So we'll have comments. Mayor Caldwell, would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, just a couple quick ones. There's a lot that goes into a lot of these decisions, and I do want to just say there are a lot of staff and other people that have contributed and done a lot with the Diversity Commission, and that was new. That was something we all set up a handful of years ago, recognizing that we weren't hearing some of those voices, and we listened intently to all of those comments. We've listened intently to you tonight. We'll have all those under consideration. I've read 50 emails on the wildlife board. There's a lot of information behind that too that we're more than happy to put out. That was a starting point to say, hey, this is part of the future expansion for the Dino Park, and that's long been part of it. A lot of what's gone into that has been, sometimes you never, no good deed ever goes unpunished with some of that, and we've tried hard, and we will continue to try hard with that. So this is what we do here, is we come and we listen and we make adjustments and we work through that, and that's something we're committed to do. And so I appreciate everybody being here and know that you've been heard and listened to, and we'll have a lot of dialogue as we move forward with this. So thank you all very much for your time and willingness to be here on a Tuesday night.
Any comments from council members?
I have comments, Chair.
Yes, please.
My first question, since it's just been brought up, I'd like to ask the mayor, what does it mean, what he just said? Does that mean that you're going to grant an extension for more than 6 months to the wildlife rehab, or does that mean that you're not going to?
I'm not prepared to make a commitment to that right now. We're here to listen, and like I said, I've received a bunch of emails, and we're working through that with our attorneys and their agreement and their contract. So that's something that we're here to listen to and accept feedback on.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. So I'm very, very proud of the people that spoke tonight. I think the level of civility in the face of a lot of frustrations to me is incredible, because there are times when we haven't had that. And so I'm just very, very proud and thankful and grateful to everybody that came to speak with grace, with courage, and with civility and with respect, because that is, as Angel said, Angel, that is so important, right? So thank you for that. On the issue of the Diversity Commission and the issues that were brought up about that, I wouldn't be, I often tell a story that I wouldn't be where I am today. I probably wouldn't be sitting in this chair if it wasn't for two mentors and allies that coached me through my journey as an immigrant when I moved here from Mexico 25 years ago, without speaking the language, without education, and dealing with some very difficult circumstances. So as someone who has experienced extreme oppression and discrimination and at times racism, I needed those allies, and without them, I wouldn't be here. And so that's what I think you are, Kevin. I think you are an ally to these causes of people like me that need people like you to speak up for them. And so I want to tell you that I love you and I appreciate everything that you do. So thank you for that. The people that spoke and that have frustrations about the things that are happening in our government, as I said about the civility, I also want to tell you that I personally hear you and I care a lot about the things that you say. In fact, sometimes I'm very hurt by my lack of power to fix things, because I'm one of 7 in a separate power in our form of government. So I have very little power. Probably the only power I have is my voice and this chair and this microphone. So that's why I like to use it as much as I can. And finally, I have a question for Mr. Johnson. I have brought repeatedly and numerous times requests to see if the administration will be willing to look at an issue on Monroe Boulevard between the streets of 12th and 9th about a guardrail where there's been a number of deaths. And what I've heard from you, Mr. Johnson, has been we're looking into it. And I have never heard any more detailed follow-up. If it's not possible, I understand. If it's in the process, I completely understand too. Whatever it is, it will be nice to hear when we make a request to get some updates. So I love to hear an update on that if it's possible. Thank you, Chair.
Would you like to make an update on that or follow up later?
We're working on it. Our staff doesn't feel the same about putting a guardrail there. They think it could be a bigger problem, but I'm still working on it with them and trying to convince them I think something needs to be done. But I don't think we're there internally yet, but we're still working on it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I appreciate it.
Any other comments? council members. Well, I would love to make a comment just in response to the diversity. Oh, is that you?
Yeah, sorry, it's hard to know when to speak up.
You bet. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I want to speak to the Diversity Commission as well. Over the years, Kevin Linnell and I have had a lot of long discussions in person and over the phone about activism, and there are many times where he and I just don't agree. But agreeing and understanding are two completely different things. And I think it's incredibly important if you don't agree, that's okay. But I don't think it's okay if we don't take the time to try and understand. And trying to understand is a genuine process. It's a genuine thing. And I think that over time, Kevin and I have built genuine love and respect for one another because we've given each other a genuine opportunity to understand, even though we don't genuinely agree. So in this case, it's really unfortunate to hear any volunteers in our city speak to what they do, especially when I talk to Kevin about activism and the world needing less of it, but it's still having a role. As one of our speakers said tonight, there's healing in activism. So I do hope that they've felt some healing tonight because it shows that there is a place for it. And if we don't want people to take an activist orientation, we ought to engage them instead. And that's all that the Diversity Commission is asking. And it's all that any of the other committees in our city would ask. They just want to be involved. They want to pick up a shovel and do the work. That's why they're here. And I think in too many instances, we've got a culture of not valuing and honoring the people that are here to serve. And that's what needs to change. So you could take this example we've seen tonight, remove Diversity Commission from it, and it still applies, I think. And I think people are fed up with it. They've had enough. And I also, like Louise said, commend the commissioners and volunteers over here tonight who have been incredibly frustrated for quite some time for your candor and kindness in the face of incredibly frustrating circumstances. Thanks.
Chair, I forgot that I needed to just say it's going to take me 20 seconds. When I asked my question about the rehabilitation center for wildlife, just officially, I just wanted to also make the request. I made it in one of our work session meetings to Mayor Brown, who was there representing the administration, and I'd like to also make that request today to the mayor. With all due respect, Mayor, I'm just making that request. Me personally, if you can do anything to grant that extension for at least a year, I would really appreciate it, and just wanted to make that officially here to you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Do you have a comment?
I've been trying to weigh whether I had to comment about this, but as you all know, I spent a lot of time on the Planning Commission, and we would spend a lot of time on land use issues. I mean, they weren't emotional typically, but we did spend a lot of time on those. And it was not uncommon that when we'd make a recommendation to the city council or the mayor, that it was not followed for whatever reason. And I understand the frustration, because there was one day I was kind of frustrated by it. It was troublesome to me, and we made a unanimous recommendation that was kind of a big deal in the city. I won't bring it up because you'll look at it now and say, well, that was stupid, Rich, but at the time it seemed like a pretty big deal to us. And many of us came to the city council meeting, and not only did we had our paper recommendation that came in the transmittal, but we also came and wanted to make our a personal verbal recommendation that the council follow our recommendation, which they in the end did not do. But one of the council members at the time said something that I think was important to know. And that's why I bring this up is they said, you know, the planning commission doesn't have the same role as the city council. We, you know, the planning commission makes a recommendation based on land use and some of those other things. The city council makes a decision based on broader issues and many issues. And sometimes you kind of put your thumb on the issue that you're having to decide that on. And so my concern is that if our members of our commissions are expecting every one of their recommendations to be followed, that's unrealistic and should probably be tempered a little, because there are differences. There's reasons that we do what we do. There are different reasons, and so I just wanted to say that because I think it's important to note. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that too, because I know we haven't always followed the Airport Advisory Commission. And I was thinking about commissions where we don't always follow their recommendations. Right. And I guess what I would say to that too is, in my perspective, even if you don't necessarily take the same or agree, having the conversation, having that dialogue, to me it is important when I look to see how many people on that commission have voted for or against something, or what their comments were, why they did it. So I think that is important. So I agree with you, what you're saying, but I do have a comment about the diversity commissioners and some of the statements they've made, because this is not the first time I've had these conversations. I mean, I actually was, before I was a council member, way back when, because I'm not the new guy, I was part of the first group of people that helped nominate and place the diversity commissioners. And that was such a great honor, because I know that commission had been built over years of work of people like Miss Betty Sawyer and Dr. Crawford and many, Adrian Andrews, you know, many people in our community that have been working toward that goal of having some kind of advisory group for the city council and the mayor to utilize to have good dialogues with, and et cetera. And so that is your worst fear, when you have high hopes for a group like that then they won't feel like their efforts are being utilized or acknowledged in any way. So that's really the saddest part for me, is that we haven't yet found that perfect kind of relationship with the Diversity Commission. I also, you know, a little bit the Sustainability Committee too, because I think some of them feel similarly. And I don't think that's why we put groups in place and ask people to volunteer to do those things. I think we do, in my opinion, I mean, I had high hopes that it would be a great benefit to us, but I also just really have a hard time condoning doing damage to people that are doing that work for us too. So
I agree. That's
my challenge, is that I think we certainly want to be respectful and have people understand what their role is, and have conversations with them if we feel they've gone outside of that or whatever it might be. And I do too, just like Stacy said, take this personally. In my day job, I've got equity as part of my title. So when people start bringing up these issues, it's going to be a fundamental challenge for me to deal with it. And I did go to the panel discussion to hear some of the conversations around this study. And so I think that we just need to think about that a little bit more, is what are we trying to do here? You know, like, do we really want the opinion of people that may be a little bit different than ours, or might speak up against things? We have to decide for ourselves when we're going to stand up for what is right and what side of history we want to be on. And I'd much rather be on Kevin's side of history than anybody else's. So that's just my comment. And now I'd be happy to adjourn.
Chair, before I make that motion, I want to make a note that I also was on that development committee that met for years on a routine basis to put this whole process into place. And so, you know, I'm pretty familiar with that whole process. Yeah. So anyway, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Vice Chair Ritchie. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, we'll get set up for our next meeting.
Well, that was cute. This is cute.
We're all chatting over there. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Special Redevelopment Agency meeting of April 4th, 2023. I almost said October. Please let the record reflect that all board members are present, that board member Nadolski is online. Would you like to say hello?
Good evening. Thank you for having me so I don't sneeze on everybody and sniffle on you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We have one item on the agenda this evening. It's a report from administration, proposed land transfer and development agreement of 550 24th Street. And we're welcoming Jeremy Smith. Oh, there you are. I'm like, I saw you before. I just didn't, you were over there. The Deputy Development Manager.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure today to talk to you about this development, 550 24th Street, infill development. This is done under the context of the Quality Neighborhood Initiative. So this is a reminder of what that is. The mission of the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative is to stabilize and revitalize Ogden's neighborhoods as neighborhoods of choice by establishing a pattern of public and private investment that catalyzes desirable and appropriate community development and growth. The goal of Quality Neighborhoods is to facilitate a wide variety of housing types across the spectrum of affordability. So we're specifically looking at this site in that context. This is 550 24th Street. It's located within the heart of our East Central neighborhood, just east of St. Joseph's Church and stone's throw away from the Weber County Library and Lester Park. The history of this property prior to, I guess, 2016, it consisted of two blighted commercial buildings that were attractants to frequent vandalism and crime. In fiscal year 2016, the RDA began acquiring properties with the intent to transform this area into a quality neighborhood development. So to date, this is the progress of where it is. As I mentioned, fiscal year 2016 is when the properties started to be acquired for this project. 2019, CIP was approved for the partial funding of the right-of-way improvements for the infill project. In fiscal year 2020, the RDA completed the remaining acquisition needed for the development. And in fiscal year 2023, the additional CIP funding was approved for an additional amount towards the street improvements for this project. So when we started looking at this project, trying to decide what would this become, we based it off of two similar infill projects the city had recently undertaken, that being Stone Hill and OGDEN. You're probably familiar with those projects, and the notable thing about them is they stand out because of their significant architecture, quality, and just the basic shot in the arm that they gave the neighborhood that they were in. So we had a similar vision for this property. We'd like to see that impact that it brought to those neighborhoods also to this one, being that it was placed so central in the neighborhood and proximity to the downtown. We thought this would be a great place for townhomes, but not just any. We wanted to make sure these were ones that represented that same consistency of superior architecture, quality, and so that it would not just be a great project while it was new, but would last for generations as a notable structure and contribute to the historic neighborhood around it. As I mentioned, we had done a couple projects before. OGDEN and Stonehill were the models that we looked at, and we plan to do that same thing where the city actually acts as a developer through the entire project and has ownership all the way until the homes are built and sold to the owner occupants. When we started with the design of this, and it's different in that it was a townhome development, which we learned is a different animal. There were some challenges that came up, and we began to see the benefits of actually partnering with a developer to help us overcome some of these things. So a few of them are listed here. The benefits of a partnership would include the mitigated development risk, economies of scale, private construction financing, HOA management and expertise, as well as professional marketing. So we determined to do this as a partnership. In 2021, staff solicited proposals through the Ogden City Purchasing Policy 4-2A-6 for qualified firms to partner with the RDA to assist in the development of the agency's property in accordance with the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative. The RFK gave clear guidance as to the agency's vision regarding architecture, product type, and development timeline. And through this process, Henry Walker Homes was selected as the qualified respondent. Since that time, staff has met with the developer to help that vision that we had early on become a reality, and that consisted of developing plans in architecture, engineering, and the process that took the time to where we are today. This is a rendering of the ultimate concept and the architecture we are proposing for this project. So we chose to target a historic design of prairie style architecture, which would complement the homes around it but also offer the amenities and everything of new construction. This townhome was also would include things as common areas like park space, large porches and balconies that encourage community involvement, engagement among neighbors, and those are all things that we felt strongly about. We also wanted this architecture to have 360 design around it. So a lot of time townhomes you'll see is just they put a lot of money up front on the face of it, but as soon as you turn the corner, all that goes away. This, as you can see, is high-end architecture all the way around. There's a lot of variation and design elements that are implemented into the entire project. And this would be kind of an aerial shot of how it's incorporated and how it talks to the downtown neighborhood, and showing some of those common areas as well. And we understand that this type of architecture, this type of design is not cheap. It's not cheap to build. It's asking a lot, but we felt that this also shows why we do this type of development. Quality Neighborhoods is about revitalization. It's about showing the world that Ogden is worth investing in. And like I said before, we're not interested in doing things that are just nice for a short time, but we want them to last for generations. And we feel this architecture, this product and a project that is presented does fulfill all of those things that the Quality Neighborhood Initiative has set out to do. Now, in order to make this feasible, because it is such, we're asking so much, there is an incentive that required. And this would come in the form of land contribution from the RDA. It's 2.62 acres. That would be the RDA's contribution. The completion under the terms of the LTDA this project would be entirely complete by December 31st, 2025. The recourse, if this didn't happen, has been increased to $650 per day, up to $1 million. And this is secured through a trust deed. The other portion of this is that, so I mentioned earlier that the city had set aside funds to do a public improvement where a public street would be put through as part of bisecting this block. The agreement would allow the developer to act as the one putting those improvements in, and then they would be reimbursed upon their completion of that, and that total amount comes to $870,000, and that's on a not to exceed amount. So it's our recommendation as agency staff, we recommend the adoption of the resolution to approve the land transfer and development agreement with Henry Walker Construction for the conveyance of development of the property located at 550 24th Street and the reimbursement agreement for the construction of a new public street on the same property. And that concludes my presentation tonight.
Jeremy, I have a quick question,
Sure.
kind of following up on Heath's comments during the last meeting. Why is the timeline so far out from when we first put out the RFQ on
Sure.
the project?
Yeah, as I mentioned, this project was just, at that time, just some pictures. I mean, these things take time. And so to come up with a project where you actually have building drawings, engineering drawings, where you can start saying like, how will this work? How will this be feasible? Those things have to be done up front. And so while we wish it was faster, that it's just not the case. And that's typical of development.
Great, thanks. Any other questions or comments from council?
I have a question.
Board members?
What is the relationship of this developer to J. Fisher developer?
As I understand it, they are a subsidiary company of JF Capital.
Subsidiary?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And what's the land value?
Land value, it depends on what you're looking at. When we did this for this context, the land value is not really the factor because it has to be donated regardless if it's $1 billion or 10,000. It's not feasible to have any value with it.
So you don't know the land value?
Well, we have approximates and we have estimates of what the land value would be.
That's what I asked.
Okay. Yeah, and that's ranges anywhere from 800,000 to $1 million. I mean, we don't have those numbers. We didn't do an appraisal on it just because when we're looking at redevelopment, it's not like we're trying to sell the land to get money back.
I understand. I was just wondering if you know the value. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Please, I thought maybe you had a question.
Yeah. Jeremy, I need help at understanding why we're not trying to take into account the value of the land.
Sure. Yeah, I can talk to that. So when we look at this, land value is something, absolutely. You can look at it and say, this is a piece that we paid for. We bought these things and it's an asset that they definitely have. When we look at what is the end goal of what we want this project to be, right? We have something in mind. We have a vision for how this project's going to end up. How do we get there? So when we do our performance, when we do our analysis of what that costs to make that happen, there are things that we have control over and variables that we can do to make sure that project happens in the way it does. Land is the only one that we have some ability to make a variable. So we know if we require a certain amount of architecture, there's no way for us to bring that into a point unless we're willing to compromise on that design. The only thing we can do is say, well, we have this land. We know that if we wanted to sell it, we could get some money for it, but that's not the intent of this project. We're not trying to sell it for money. We're trying to make sure the product and the vision for this development happens. And for that to happen, that requires the contribution of the land.
A follow-up question, if the contribution of the land is necessary, wouldn't the actual value of the land be important so that we know our contribution is valued so that we're not making additional contributions unnecessarily?
Yes.
I'm not understanding your logic. Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's built into it as well. So that the penalty that you see there represents the amount the city is into this project. So the sunk cost that the city paid for it and put up for that would be repaid if there was a default on that. And that's that $1 million there. So at the end of the day, our goal is to get this project and have it be what the vision for it was. So I don't know if that answers
Sure.
the question.
And as we're trying to achieve that vision, is it also our goal to make sure we get our greatest value for the asset and for the incentive?
Yes. Yeah, and I understand. And as we looked at their numbers and we analyzed how much they propose, how much does it cost to build the product we have there, right? That we're proposing they build. How much does that cost? We look at the price per square foot. We look at all those things and see like, well, if you want that product, if you want that house, it's going to cost this much to build it. And how much can we sell it for? And when you see that, you say, well, you're basically breaking even on those numbers. So what do we do? If you want this to happen, then you have to donate the land. That's how that works.
Okay, I think we'll have to agree to disagree. One more question I have, Jeremy, have we ever considered long-term lease of ground like this for projects like this?
I haven't been involved in any long-term lease considerations on any projects I've done, no.
Okay, thanks.
I have another follow-up,
Yeah.
Chair. If that's
Go
okay. Jeremy, can you talk just a little bit about the selection process for this developer?
Sure. Yeah. When we decided that we wanted to entertain going out and getting a developer on board, we went through the RFQ process. So basically, we adopted the city's policy for that, which is, I don't remember the number on it, but that's the purchasing department's route to do that. So it's an RFQ process. We worked with our purchasing department in advertising through that, and we let them run the show with that. We provided the RFQ package, worked with them to do that, and they did the advertising on that. So that generally, I think it is published in the paper. Those papers are taken by third-party bid parties and sent out, but the requirement that we use was the city's policy.
But do you know what process that is? Do you know the process?
Yes, I think that's what I was talking about, is that process is, if you have an RFQ, it's bid or it's advertised through the Standard Examiner, the newspaper, and then that's posted, in third-party bid plans, but that's not the requirement. The requirement is that it has to be advertised in the paper, and that's the procurement method that the city uses for bids.
So you guys also send emails to a list of potential developers, is that correct?
Yeah, and that's part of it. I mean, it's not a requirement on it, but we have the purchasing department also has a database where they send emails out to anyone that's either contacted us and is interested, or they just are on that database of businesses. But it's technically not required, but it's something they can do.
You know, can you remind me the number of how many are in
I
that
don't.
list?
I mean, I think it was close to 800 or 900, something like that. I don't have the exact number in front of me.
And do you know, out of those 800 plus, how many of those are qualified developers to do this?
I don't.
project?
I can't speak to that. It's like I said,
know?
it's not wasn't required to do it. It was something that was sent out,
Okay.
but it's not part of the actual requirement.
Thank you, Jeremy. I
Mhm.
appreciate it.
And then, Jeremy, just to clarify for me, I wasn't sure because we had a couple meetings about this. Did we verify that this was put in the paper? I feel like
It was, yeah, and I think I passed that along. We have the verification, the
Oh, okay,
publication,
good.
and it was
I missed
actually
that. I
published
apologize.
twice. The requirement is only once, but we did publish it twice.
Right, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm getting it confused
No
with
problem.
something else. Thank you. Sometimes I need little reminders.
Sure.
Do we post that on our website as well?
It's on our website, the Ogden City Purchasing website. Yes,
Are all?
all bids are. It's under bid opportunities, under doing business on our website. Yes,
And is that updated on a regular basis?
it is.
This is
Yes, yeah, it's all done through the purchasing department. They're very, very good at it.
Any other questions before we take input? Yes.
Not a question, just a thank you.
Mhm.
I know I had similar reservations about how much money we had put into this project, and I wanted to make sure we got that money back out. And I saw on there that if something doesn't happen and they don't perform up to what we want, then we've increased that number to make sure that we get those monies back. So that was a request, and I appreciate you guys working on that and negotiating that.
Chair, I have a question. In our vetting of this developer, and I know you didn't do it, some other people did, but is there any history of default that they have had on similar projects or other projects in the past? Or, I mean, do we have any expectation? I mean, have they got a record that we can point
I
to?
don't have any knowledge of that, of any default. There's no expectation it would happen in this case as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, well, we're happy to take input on this item. So you're welcome to step up to the podium and state your name for the record and speak for 3 minutes. And if you're online, you can raise your hand and the same thing goes. Welcome.
Heath Sato, Ogden resident. Number one, we've been purchasing this land for 6 years, and starting in 2016, put it all together, and we have a roughly $29-30 million Department of Economic Development, and we put out, I believe it was 904 emails or so, and one of the developers that found out about this and applied found out by accident. And there were only two people that applied, two developers that applied. They had 3 weeks from when it was announced to put together a package. I cannot believe for an instance that the one developer that the other developer did not know about this well in advance and had plenty of time to put together a package. I don't think our system is working well. And if we are going to give away what is worth well more than $1 million, I've tried to buy land to build myself a studio in Ogden, and you can go out in unattractive areas, and an acre and a half of land, you can't buy it for $1.5 million. I think we need real numbers put together, and I think we need to know what value we are giving developers. I think we need the real people behind developers to be front and center from the very beginning. And again, no matter what you think about this developer, I think is a bad idea to put so much of our city's property that we have purchased as a city into one basket, one single developer. And yes, Henry Walker Homes has had financial troubles, and they've been bought out before and resold again. And there's actually some sketchy stuff, and they're not well reviewed. I don't know why we're doing this. It makes no sense. We could get so much more. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments in the chamber? You coming up? Feel free.
Mike Anthony, new resident too.
You might have to lean into the mic just a little bit so people can hear you online. Thank you.
Mike Anthony, new resident to Ogden. Many, many years, decades in real estate, appraising, asset management, and this is my quick calculations. Property's worth between 1.4 and 1.56 million minimum. Add the 870, you're looking at 2.27 to 2.43 giveaway, or someplace between 87,000 to 93,000 per unit. Figure the units in this soon-to-be downward cycling economy at 200,000 a pop. You're almost funding 50% to give it away. I'm not sure it makes sense, but what I'm looking at is this is a $5-point-something million project, of which you're roughly going to hand half the cost. I don't know this developer at all, so I have no comment. I just don't understand the logic behind it. But I think there's better things to do with the land than to slam townhouses into it. The rest of the neighborhood is quite old, so there's going to be a juxtaposition. The aperture to that particular community is across the street from the former LDS family history property, which was conveyed to another party that's looking at doing drug rehab in that property. So you've got this pretty interesting dichotomy of two different kinds of operations going on there. I think you should think long and hard about what you're doing, especially when there is not a clear indicator that it's all rosy in real estate going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I am not opposed to this development. I believe that it is the right decision to make sure we're building things that people can purchase that are smaller in a footprint so that the price point is lower. What I do have is a problem with this particular process. I know for a fact that you all know that a well-respected real estate appraisal professional who does work for the state and as well as a professional witness in legal cases has given you a whole bunch of information. And that particular information is that that property is way undervalued. And while I do understand thoroughly that the RDA may give away any property, I encourage you to think about the loss of revenue here, because only 2 developers applied. And as was mentioned before, the only reason the second developer applied was a happenstance, a conversation at an architect's office on a completely different thing. That second developer that was not chosen is award-winning, has experience with brown sites, has experience with historic homes, has been building homes for over 20 years, is experienced in all of the aspects of the capital stack, new market tax credits, light tech, TIF, all of it. And I also know for a fact that you know on that proposal that that developer was willing to pay $1.9 million. With no road, $1.9 million, willing to build the road, willing to provide those homes. That developer also stated in that package that his preference was to rent, but was willing to do whatever was desired by the city. Award-winning, over 20 years, historic, experienced property, work partnerships with housing agencies, having worked with other states and other cities. This was not a proper RFQ process. I know you know that. How can you possibly approve when not the major developers were not even reached out to? No Big D, no RNO, no CTI, no Ken Ivory. All of them have done townhomes. We simply cannot continue to do business like this when people are willing to pay for properties to not go that second step and go, okay, well, RFP. We are supposed to be making sure that we are stewards of tax dollars. And I know you know the last time you needed $1.9 million for OSD property.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chamber? Okay, we'll go online to Sebastian Benitez. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
All right, I am here again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I love you, Jeremy. You are my best neighbor. You know how much we love you. But I am not going by you. But let me think like you guys. If you buy some property, and a few years later, are you going to give away your property for somebody to make somebody more profit? You are not going to get anything? I don't think so. If you buy something, you will use for your own benefits. It's my philosophy and my business. You have to make money. Or the other point is, I am living here in Ogden for 20 or 23 years, I think. I paid my property taxes. I own the property. I feel like every single property the city buy and spend money is part of my taxes too. We can't give away for free something we pay with our property taxes, something like that. And just one or two developer. I know I work with a lot of builders in my business, and I hear from them they don't want to do business with Ogden anymore. I can mention your names. They are from here, from Ogden, but they are upset working with Ogden City administration because it's hard. That is the thing they said. But the point is how we the resident, pay taxes to give somebody benefits, profit for somebody is not our own city. We have to receive I can't understand that point. I think we have to redo again, put them in the website or on the newspaper, whatever. What is I don't know. That is the point when I said how efficient we are as a leader. And I don't see that efficient in the leader right now. I prefer wait again to the next administration to take care. It's just 9 months. Can we wait for 9 months to take the better decision about it? Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any other comments?
When appropriate, I have a follow-up question, Chair.
Yeah, I was just going to say any more comments or questions from the board.
May I?
Mm-hmm.
I have a follow-up question for Jeremy, please. Jeremy, could you please talk a little bit about the scoring process that the committee went through to ultimately select the developer that won this?
Sure. Yeah. So there is a matrix of questions and of capabilities based on the RFQ process that was put out there. There was a panel of 4 reviewers, individually reviewed them based on that, looked at things as their qualification, experience, financial capabilities, and I'm trying to remember what else was on there, but it was that type of thing, evaluating strictly what was requested in the RFQ and how well they responded to it.
So was there a scoring? Was there? So what was the score?
Well, I don't have those numbers on memory. I don't have them in front of me, but they were ranked. So how well they performed on a certain thing, like I said, if their experience or whatever, they would have gotten a score on that. And all those line items add up and give you a total score. And that's how those work. And that's typical of most RFP.
Do you remember how wide was the difference?
I don't. It wasn't like within 1 or 2. It was enough of a margin. Yeah.
I would. Oh, it's right here. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Any other comments? Questions? Okay. Well, I'd be happy to consider a motion.
Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2023-7.
I'll second.
A motion by Board Member Blair and a second by Board Member Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2023-7. And this is a roll call vote.
Board Member Heyer.
Aye.
Board Member Lopez.
No.
Board Member Nadolski.
No.
Board Member White,
Aye.
Board Member Blair,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ritchie,
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
No, and that passes. Would anybody like to make comment about their vote?
I guess I would. I think we started this quality neighborhoods project or process in 2017, I believe it was. Jeremy, was that a good year? It was before that. I remember we all loaded in the van. We went around. We looked at the issues, and that was when we started to budget $1 million a year to kind of lift that central neighborhood. And we had some pretty specific goals. And this project, as its location and its the quality of the project, meets the goals that we set aside. I will acknowledge that we need to develop a better process. But I fear, I don't just fear, I think it would be beneath us to put people through all of this process, to go jump through the hoops that we do to get them to respond to RFQs, and then to work with our CED department, spend the man hours, the money to develop a project like this, and then say, we changed our mind. I think we would never get another developer to bid on a thing for Ogden ever. Now, I guess you could see that differently in another way, but that's kind of the way I see this. I do believe, though, that we are pretty obligated. I think we have pointed out a few things that can be done a lot better. And I think that is up to us. That is up to us as a council to develop a process by which the administration goes through to find these developers and to get them to come. And it is in our best interest to get 20 bids, not just 2. And so we've got to find better ways to advertise, to market, but we've got to make sure that it's fair. It's got to, we can't just make our own list and exclude anybody. We've got to make sure that we have a way to entice people to want to learn about these things. And we're not going to get everybody to bid on everything, but we certainly ought to do better than to get 2 people. In a booming economy, I would hope that would happen. So I'm not saying that everything is all rosy and great, but I think that the option of passing this, learning what we can from the deficiencies, and then acting in a proactive way to fix those deficiencies is the best option. That's kind of the way I see it at this point.
Thanks. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll follow up on that too. I think, Councilmember Heyer, I agree the process can be better. However, I think you alluded to that, and that is that, by creating a database or by creating, an email list or whatever, it's up upon us to make sure that everybody reads their emails and is looking at that. And so I do think that we can't sit back and just say, oh, it's just as easy as creating a database, or it's just as easy as,
I agree.
Sending out emails, because at some point in time, those emails are going to go to spam, and then we're picking, winners and losers, and somebody is going to be mad. And I also want to follow up by saying that the other developer could have reached out to us 3 years ago, and we did not hear from that developer either. And so, at some point in time, there's a lot of advocates in this room coming because of of the whatever they think is the wrong process. The process that I think I do believe that the process that we have today was followed, and that the only person that should be mad in this room is the other developer, and that should have been 3 years ago when they didn't get the bid. So
yeah, they did reach out to me at that time.
So I didn't, I'd had plenty of time to talk to him as well. So, I mean, I guess that's, I just think it's interesting that whenever whenever it doesn't go away or a certain way, it's always the process. And I just don't know that that's always the case. I think the process absolutely can be better. Obviously, I barely could find any notices on the bid process on our website. I think it should be front and center, but I just don't think, I think we have an obligation to be able to put it out there consistently so that a developer can know when and what we're doing and when we're bidding and all of that. If it's every Tuesday, something, but I just don't think that we should be trying to figure out how to email everybody and, so. And I do think a process was followed. They did a Rubik's, they went through that. So.
Any other comments?
Well, I was trying very hard not to demonize opposing vote blocks on this item because I need to respect everyone's vote, because if we vote our conscience, and to me that's the most important thing to honor here. But it's hard not to respond when I'm hearing this demonization of what some of us believe. We believe it's not the right decision. But I'll just speak for myself. I lost my train of thought here for a second. Lost my train of thought. I remember
That's
my point.
okay. It comes back to
If
you.
it comes
We
back.
have time for more comments.
Yes.
Any comments from the executive director?
I've got comments before you.
Please, go ahead. I'm so sorry, Mayor. Go ahead.
Well, like Councilmember Lopez said, I respect everybody's vote. I hope you'll do the same for mine. I don't think any of us feel that the process is good enough, but I would just say that I'm just going off memory, but I think it was more than 2 years ago that Luis and I sat and had coffee with a member of the development community who had been burned for the last time and was at wit's end and asked to meet with us. And we did. And it was that conversation that kind of led us to start this discussion about the RFP process and so on. And we've candidly been met with a lot of resistance along the way, and even up to this vote for this project led to believe that we've been wrong, that we've been irrational or emotional or confused and confusing. That's not the case. The fact is, we're in a different position as a city than we have been in the past, and it's time that we honor the taxpayers, honor the trust that is not there. We do need to build bridges of trust that are burned. And like Sebastian Benitez said in his comments, there are so many people in the city that don't want to do business with us. And it's because of these kinds of things. That's just the opinion people take from what we've done here. And everybody I've talked to said, I don't want incentives. I just want an opportunity to compete. And that's what I think that we lack, is an opportunity to compete for these opportunities. And I think that in this case, it's not the project that I dislike. It's just that I'm not convinced that we got the best value for Ogden. Thanks.
Okay.
I remember.
Oh, go ahead.
Were you going to go?
No, go ahead. I was going to offer the mayor.
Oh, okay. So I was just going to say I heard some of the comments about how it's our job to help guide the process, and it's been my experience that sometimes for certain things, with this one in particular, it has been very difficult in my view, and there's been a lot of resistance and pushback from representatives of the administration to our desire and our request and our our efforts to try to improve the process. I personally feel like I've been met with sometimes a lot of contempt, and I don't feel like there's been open willingness. So I hope that's there in the future. It is my legitimate hope that is there, because I haven't felt like that. So anyway, that was all. Thank you.
Okay, we'll try it one more time. Executive Director.
Yeah, I will disagree with a number of those comments. And I want to thank Jeremy. This has been at least 6 years and thousands of hours from your department to try and figure out how this works and what we can do with what before was a blighted property, as you mentioned, and completely a public nuisance and everything else. So I know that there's always going to be disagreements on how it came together and who did what and where and who got the contract and who didn't. But I want to recognize the thousands of hours you guys have put into putting this before the council for consideration. Whether people agree with it or not, those efforts need to be recognized. So thank you very much. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Well, and I would just echo those. I appreciate very much all the effort. My disagreement with my vote doesn't have anything to do with the people involved. You know, it has to do with process. And I really hope that this project works out great. I mean, I have high hopes for it. So any other board members have comments? Great, I'd be happy to.
Motion to adjourn.
Here, I'll just add to my comment.
Oh, please, go ahead. So sorry. I didn't give you time.
I'll postpone that.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Just want to add to just as the mayor said, my comments are not a reflection of personal attack on Jeremy or anyone else. Just a matter of opinion and not a matter of personal difference. Thank you.
Okay, go.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion by Board Member Heyer to adjourn, and a second by Board Member Blair. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.